In this half hour, our guest is progressive strategist Mike Lux, who is also co founder of Democracy Corps. Before we get to Mike, though, we're going to play this clip, which illustrates the battle within the Democratic Party on the party's response to last week's passage of the continuing resolution and the back and forth between the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Let's talk about what happened
Chuck
in the
Schumer,
stock market.
I guess the Senate Democratic leader, your senator, said at this meeting that he is going to vote for cloture. He is going to vote to allow there to be a simple majority vote. You think that's wrong?
I believe that's a tremendous mistake. Yes.
Why?
I think, well, first and foremost, the American people, if anyone has held a town hall or has seen what has been happening in town halls, American people, whether they are Republicans, Independents, Democrats, are up in arms about Elon Musk and the actual gutting of federal agencies across the board. This continuing resolution codifies much of this chaos that Elon Musk is wreaking havoc on the federal government. It codifies many of those changes. It sacrifices and completely eliminates congressional authority in order to review these impulsive Trump tariffs that he's switching on and off. And on top of that, for folks who are concerned about effectiveness in government, this Republican extreme spending bill removes all of the guardrails and all of the accountability measures to ensure that money is being spent in the way that Congress has directed for it to be spent. This turns the federal government into a slush fund for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It sacrifices congressional authority, and it is deeply partisan. And so to me, it is almost unthinkable why Senate Democrats would vote to hand the few pieces of leverage that we have away for free when we've been sent here to protect Social Security, protect Medicaid, and protect Medicare.
You have.
That was Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Our guest in this half hour is progressive media strategist Mike Lux. Mike, welcome to Deadline DC.
Thanks, Brad. It's good to be on again.
Anyway, let's start with that. It seems to me, Mike, and if you disagree, chime in, please, that no Republican in Washington, D.C. or anywhere in the United States of America will dare criticize Donald Trump. Magna marches in lockstep. On the other hand, last week we had a major disagreement within the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer and 9 other Democrats, including one independent who caucuses with Democrats, voted to allow a majority vote, which worked on a continuing resolution, which increased defense spending by many hundreds of millions of dollars, while it decreased spending on domestic programs. And the minority leader in the Senate took a lot of heat from progressive Democrats on his vote to allow the debate to continue. So, first of all, what's your opinion on the decision of Senator Schumer to support debate and allow a debate on the continuing resolution, which passed last week?
Well, on this one, I very much agree with AOC. I have been doing polling and focus groups for the last several years, especially of working class voters, swing voters, as well as base voters. And the single biggest weakness for the Democratic Party with those voters, the single biggest weakness in our brand, is that they perceive us as weak. They perceive us as not willing to fight for them. And I think this was an example of at least those Democrats. Most Democrats voted against this awful thing. but those Democrats who voted for it are being perceived as weak, and they are weak. You don't give away the one piece of leverage you have in a situation, and I do think it was a big mistake.
Okay, let me ask you this. It seems to me that things are going from bad to worse in the second Trump presidency. I believe last week the president completely ignored a federal court ruling on deportation of some gang members from Nicaragua or El Salvador.
If they were gang members, that's what Trump claimed, but we don't even know that because there's been no evidence presented. But
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
And besides that, it just seems that, instead of being cautious about all these federal judges who, saying, stop, you can't do this, it's violation of the Constitution, Trump is just, going further and further, away from the Constitution. And, I think we're on the precipice of a very dangerous time in American political history. And I guess my question to you is there anything is there anything progressives can do to stop this? And if there is, what can we do to stop this? Because it's really getting completely out of hand, in my opinion.
Well, it is completely out of hand, and Trump believes he was elected dictator, and he's acting like it. And so we do have to throw barriers in our way. Let me just throw out a few quick ways I think that we can stop or slow him down. First of all, we shouldn't give up on the courts. I think that over time, the accumulated court decisions are going to start making even Republicans nervous. And if things go to the Supreme Court and he still ignores basically his own Supreme Court that he appointed 3 members of, then I think you will see a lot of Republicans really starting to freak out. So I don't think we should ignore the courts. Having said that, the courts aren't going to save us. The courts are absolutely not going to save us. What's going to save us, honestly, is people. People have got to get in the streets, and it's happening. It's happening, but it needs to happen more. We have to be out there. Every day we have to be out there on all kinds of different issues. I am of the Winston Churchill mindset right now. We have to fight them on the beaches. We have to fight them on the landing strip. We have to fight them in the cities. We have to fight them in the small towns. We have to get out there, and I think eventually, Brad, we need to be looking at putting literally millions of people in the streets. And Americans have traditionally not been a go to the streets kind of a people, the way a lot of Europeans are. But we are going to have to look at putting 5 million people in the street to slow this down. I think that at the end of the day is going to be what we have to do. And so I think starting to build our ability to do that, starting to build our ability to fight Trump in the streets is a key element. Jamie Raskin has a little saying he's been using lately, which I like, which is a demonstration a day keeps the fascists away. So far it hasn't, right? But we got to build that capacity. The other thing I would say is we've got to take advantage of the American system of federalism. Democratic governors have a whole lot of power to stop ridiculous things from happening in their states. Democratic AGs have a lot of power to stop ridiculous things from happening in their states, and to keep bringing more and more lawsuits. So we've got to take advantage of the various powers that we have. Final note, Brad, on this: members of Congress have more power than they're taking right now to slow things down, especially in the Senate.
We need to take a very quick break. to give our radio listeners a little break, but we'll be continuing the video portion of the show and our interview with Mike Lux right after this very quick break. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. My guest in this half hour is Mike Lux, progressive media strategist. Mike, let me ask you a different kind of question. Let me follow up on something you just said before the break. Do you think, I think on Trump's inauguration day back in January, we had protests across the country at state capitals by progressive groups. And it seemed to me those were pretty spontaneous. What kind of connection is there between congressional Democrats in Washington, D.C., and progressive strategists throughout the country, or is there one?
I think there is one, Brad. I think that right now congressional Democrats are feeling under siege, and they need allies. So I think they need to be reaching out to those allies. But there are people we already on the show. We've talked about AOC. We've talked about Jamie Raskin, and there are others out there who are going to demonstrations, who are connecting with the local grassroots in their districts and in their states. And I think we need to encourage that connection. Part of our job outside of those of us outside of government is to give Democrats in government courage and passion, and to help them seize the power that they do have.
Okay. Let me ask another question about something you mentioned in the first segment. Democrats have a real problem with working families. Looking over the exit polls from November, the first thing that I saw that completely shocked me was that Harris barely beat Trump. I think it was 51-49 among voters in the lowest income level in the excess, which was under $50,000 per household. How do you account for that?
Well, I think Democrats over the years have just done a bad job of reaching out to those kinds of folks, both rhetorically, but also the avenues that we use. I mean, you look at folks who live in smaller towns. You look at folks who live in the old factory towns in the Midwest and in the Rust Belt. Those folks aren't hearing from us because their sources of media have dried up. Newspapers are dying. Local radio is dying. Local TV is oftentimes Sinclair Broadcasting. Democrats need to figure out how to use social media and how to use other forms of media to reach people. And they also have to go back to old-fashioned community organizing that isn't just right before the election. We got to be talking to people and listening to people and working with people and helping people all year round, not just right around the election. We can't rely on TV ads. One final thing on that, Brad, we have to have a better message than like catchphrases like the opportunity economy. No one knows what the hell that means. When we were doing focus groups, people were like, "What? Opportunity? Like what?"
Mike, we're going to have to take another quick break. We'll be back with more of Deadline DC right after this message. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon, and welcome back our radio listeners. And by the way, if you listen to us on various outlets, Progressive Voices or whatever, and you want to watch us too, you can watch us at twitter.com/Brad Bannon, at facebook.com/Deadline DC with Brad Bannon /videos, and at youtube.com /@Deadline DC. Our guest in this half hour is progressive media strategist and co-founder of Democracy Corps, Mike Lux. Mike, let me ask you this. First of all, I think you're right about reaching out to working families. When I saw that those numbers from the exit poll that showed we barely won voters in the lowest income bracket, I could feel FDR turning around, flipping over in his grave at Hyde Park, and probably my grandfather too, who was a strong New Deal activist back in the day. Let me ask you this question. You talked about we need more than slogans, and you mentioned opportunity economy, which is one of many which I think mystifies Americans. What kind of policies can we espouse that will help us win back working families?
Well, one of the interesting things, Brad, is that folks in our polling focus groups, they do want specific solutions. They want to hear what Democrats, what politicians are going to do to actually improve their lives. And so when you actually get into, without having like a long laundry list or something like that, but when you get into specific solutions, like if you say we want to raise taxes on the wealthy, they want to say, okay, well, how are you going to do that? Because we know these we know these wealthy guys have lots of loopholes. What are you going to do when you say we're going to bring jobs back home? They want to know, like, what does that mean? Are you going to force the government to buy American products? Does it mean you're going to end tax loopholes for investing overseas? I mean, people are following these things more than you think, and are more aware of these things than you think. On Medicaid is another example. One of the reasons that we're winning right now the fight over Medicaid is that people know, they're following these issues, and they know that 20% of Americans are dependent on Medicaid for either their health coverage or their nursing home coverage, and so they want to know specifics. And they're starting to ask Republicans those questions. If you're going to cut Medicaid, what are you going to cut? So I think we do need to be specific when we talk about issues. I think we can do that without going into wonk mode and without boring people. We can tie it to our values, and we can tie it to our core beliefs. But I do think people want specifics when you talk to them about issues.
Well, let me ask you a question. What should those specifics be? In the first half hour, we interviewed progressive economist and Rob Shapiro, and he said voters want to know more from Democrats and were just opposed to what Trump wants to do.
Yes, agreed.
So what should we propose that we want to do?
Well, number one, we should be saying very clearly that we want to reduce corporate power in government and in the economy, that we want to reduce monopolies. People, by the way, really know what monopolies are. Large majority of people know what oligopolies are. You wouldn't think they would, but they're following this stuff, and they're saying, break up some of those companies. They're saying, make these companies compete again. So I think that's one thing. Second thing is they want more power for working people. They want workers to have stronger unions. Right now, the numbers show that unions are more popular than they've ever been, with like 75% support. They want it easier to join unions. They want it. They want to stop union busting, captured employee anti-union meetings. They want to stop things like that. So increasing worker power, increasing union power is a big thing for people. Making sure that these wealthy, profitable corporations pay at least as much in taxes as small businesses pay. Making sure that billionaires pay at least as much in taxes as working people pay. I mean, folks want them to pay more than that, but they at least want the loopholes eliminated so that they pay minimum taxes at least. So that's a real big one for people. And on trade policy, there's all this sort of anti-tariff talk. Most of what people want on trade is they want it to be worker centered. They don't want trade to be all about making sure multinational corporations have the least restrictions and the best deals. They want it to be they want trade deals to be trade deals that are good for working people, and that respect working people's power in the workplace, and they care about that that issue a lot. So I could go on with more things, but those are some examples of the kinds of things that people are looking for in their economic policy.
Well, I asked Rob Shapiro the same question, and he thinks that Democrats' big priority should be health care. He
Yes.
said that health care costs are a burden on just about every working family. And what should Democrats be advocating? Bernie Sanders, for example, has called to add on to Medicare benefits, dental, vision, and so forth. What should Democrats be doing on health care?
Well, Bernie is absolutely right that we ought to add dental and eye care to Medicare. Another thing I would say is that we should, Biden was negotiating drug prices on certain drugs. We should expand that list. We should have a list as large as the Veterans Administration. The Veterans Administration, I think, has about 300 different drugs that they've negotiated the prices with drug companies for the VA on. We should dramatically expand the number of drugs that we can negotiate prices on. That's a big one. I think if you look at Medicaid and Medicare, a big part of the fight in the coming years is just preserving it, saving it, making sure that we still have Medicaid and Medicare, because the Republicans are coming for it with a chainsaw, with Musk's chainsaw. They're trying to totally kill those programs, which Musk has made abundantly clear. So that's a big part, I think, of the healthcare thing. I would just add one other thing on prices.
Okay.
We need to get prices down in hospitals. The hospital overcharges on things like just aspirin, Tylenol, on like the most basic things are ridiculous, and that's one thing. That's another thing we can do to lower healthcare prices.
Mike, thank you very much for coming back to Deadline DC. I want to thank our guest, Mike Lux, who is a progressive media strategist. In this half hour, and in the first half hour, Dr. Robert Shapiro, noted economist. I also want to thank our executive producer, Mark Grimaldi, who makes sure the show runs on time and stays online. Next week, apparently, we're going to have a Meet the Press segment. Mika Solna, who covers Congress for Punchbowl News, will join us in the first half hour. And Mavinti Qureshi, who is national political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, will join us. So we have a great show next Monday. Make sure you don't miss it. Stay strong and stand tall in the meantime, and tune in for more Deadline DC with Brad Bannon next Monday, and we'll miss the show at your own peril.